Okay, people, I want you to stop chatting now in the chat box. We're going to start with our lesson. So please, okay, stop chatting now. You will see, like I said, in the table of contents that we are going to continue with budgets today, and then we are going to look at transactions, basically what transactions is. Right. There you will see budgets, and we're going to start off with an activity. I'm going to do this activity with you guys, but before we're going to start, remember with budgets yesterday, we said it's going to be like a written document where you're going to enter all the income and all the expenses with the idea to see how much is left over at the end of the day, what you can save or invest. If we look at this activity, you will see that it's saying there you have finished studying and have got your first job. You have decided to move into a flat with a friend. Your salary is 9,000 Rand per month after tax. Work out how much you will need to spend for 1 month and how much you will have left over for savings and investments. Remember to take into account some of the costs, for example, rent, food, electricity, etc. If you had any money left over every month, would you save or invest your money, and explain why? Right, so a lot of info was given here. If we just summarize, okay, let's say you are finished studying and you've got your first job. You're going to earn a salary of 9,000 Rand per month. So that will be your income. We're going to look at some of expenses, and then we're going to see if you have some money left at the end of the day. All right, so if we look at the bottom, you will see I've divided into 2 columns. On the left-hand side, I've written in your income, and the only income that you're going to have is your monthly salary of 9,000 Rand. Then on the other side, you will see I've put the expenses is the heading. And then I've listed all the expenses that you have, and I've just put some amounts in. For example, let's say you need to pay your monthly rent of 3,000 Rand. You need to pay your electricity bill of 500 Rand. You also need to pay some food you need to eat, let's say 1,000 Rand. You need to buy some clothes for 500 Rand. And you need to fill up, put some petrol into your car of 500 Rand. So on the one side, I've put your income. In this case, the only income that you have is the 9,000 Rand. And on the other side, I've put all your expenses that you have. Now I'm sitting here with my calculator. So I'm going to work out to see now, do I have some money left at the end of the day? And if so, what can we do with that money? So if you take your monthly salary of 9,000 Rand, and then you're going to subtract all your expenses. Okay, expenses, so we said 3,000 Rand for the rent, minus 500 Rand for the electricity, minus 1,000 Rand for food, minus 500 Rand for clothes, and minus another 500 Rand for petrol. So after you have subtracted that, then on my calculator, I've got 3,500 Rand left. Okay. Now, like the last question was saying there, if you had any money left over every month, like in this case, you've got 3,500 Rand left, would you save or invest your money? And explain why. All right. That is going to be different from person to person, depending on what your needs is going to be. Some of you are maybe, for instance, got something in the eye for quite a while now, so you want to save money to buy that thing or whatever. If you don't really need the money for something, then you can go and invest the money. Now, what is basically the difference between save and invest? If you save money, then normally it's immediately available if you need it. Okay, so let's say you're going to put every month, you put, let's say 500 Rand away, you save it, but suddenly there's an emergency, you need the money, then immediately you can get the money to use it. But if you invest money, okay, that is very good. and you earn a lot of interest on that investment. But if you invest money, then it is not immediately available. For instance, you can go and invest money for a period of 1 year, for instance, or 5 years. Now, what is going to happen if you've got an emergency and you need the money? Then you can't get the money because it is invested away for a certain period. So, like I said, depending on what your situation is, you're either going to save the money or you can go and invest the money. All right. Before we're going to continue, I just want to inform you guys that the school said that next week you're going to do some informal assessments about the work that we have done. So it's very important that you start to need to get all the PowerPoint slides for you, because all the informal assessments will be on the work that we have done so far. So for instance, like in this case, I can give you some information regarding budgets, and then I can tell you to go and draw up a budget like the one that you have there in front of you, where the income is on the one side and the expenses is on the other side. We are going to practice one more of them a little bit later on today. Right, there's an activity. Okay, so let's see what this activity is saying there. They say planning a personal budget. It's about Donovan. They have given us a budget there, and then they're asking you 9 questions then. So we're just going to work together on that one. But before we're going to work together, I'm going to give you a few minutes so you can look at the budget and look at the questions and see if you can answer those questions, and then we will work through it. So just to go through the budget, look there on the left-hand side, there's the income. You can see there's a salary of 4,210 Rand, as well as Donovan got a weekend job of 514 Rand. And on the right-hand side, there is all his expenses that he needs to pay. Rent, electricity, food, car payments and petrol, account payments, entertainment, clothing, and domestic help. So I'm going to give you a few minutes, let's say about 5 minutes, that you can go and work through it to see if you can maybe answer those questions based on the budget of Donovan, and then we will work through those questions together. Eloya, I can notice that if you raised your hand, but you're more than welcome. If you got any questions, people, then you can type it in the chat box. That is just easier for me to see the question if you want to ask something. And then in the meantime, I just want to reply on what Judy said that there. Well done. You already noticed something there, that he spends more money that he gets paid for. So well done. I think that is one of the questions we're going to work through. But otherwise, people, if you have any questions, please put it in the box. As I said, it's just easier for me to look at the question then. I'm going to give you 1 more minute that you can go through this information. Okay, somebody can't really clearly see the above. Okay, so I'm just going to repeat it. On the left-hand side, there is the income. It is the salary of 4,210 Rand and a weekend job of 514. And then on the right-hand side, they just list the expenses there, and it starts with rent of 1,010, electricity of 90, food of 1,500, car payments and petrol of 1,020, and I think the rest you should see. Right, let's look at the questions based on the information that you have in front of you. Number 1 is saying, explain what you have noticed about Donovan's budget. Now, I mean, Junior already answered that question to us, because if you look at the total of the income, and the total of the income is 4,724, and you look at the total of the expenses, and the total of the expenses is 5,745, then you can see that Donovan is spending more money that he is earning, and that is definitely not going to be a good thing at all. So number 1 again is just that he is spending more money what he earns. Then with number 2, is it a balanced budget, and explain why you think so. Of course, this is not a balanced budget, because the expenses is quite more than what the income is going to be, and that is not going to work. How on earth can you spend more what you're going to get into your budget? Then number 3, is Donovan spending more or less than he earns? Okay, we've already answered that one. He is definitely spending more, and I can see people, Amanda, those people saying also that he's spending more money. Number 4, what would you suggest he could do to manage his money better? Definitely he must work on his expenses. And we are going to make later on, I think it's with question number 8, we are going to look at where he can save on some of his expenses. Okay. For instance, if we looked at, let's take, for instance, clothing of 600 Rand. It's no need to buy clothes every month of 600 Rand. Okay. So there on the clothing, for instance, he can save. Then question 5, what do you think you should stop spending money on, and why? Okay, I've already given you one example of the clothes. I will also say the domestic help is not necessary. He can clean up after himself. He's only one person in that flat. And then the entertainment of 700 Rand is also quite a lot. So he must save on the entertainment as well. And then there are some of the other things as well where you can save a little bit on. But as we said, we're going to redraw a budget with number 8. Then question number 6, should he be saving any money? Well, in this case, he cannot save because he is spending more that he earns. So he is supposed to have some money left at the end of the day. That is the idea, so he can save. But if we look at his current situation, definitely then he cannot save. Number 7, what will happen if he suddenly needs money for an emergency? Well, he's going to have a very big problem because, I mean, he's a single guy. He's not having a medical aid. What if he's maybe in an accident now and he needs some money? Then he's going to have a problem because he cannot pay for the hospital or the doctors or whatever. So Donovan is actually quite in big trouble if we look at his budget. Okay, let me just see some people chatting in the box. Okay, somebody's saying he should get a loan shark or borrow money from the bank. Okay, but then he still needs to pay that back. So this is not going to help him at all. Okay, it doesn't help if you're going to take a loan at the bank. You still need to repay that loan. And at the end of the day, you're going to repay it with some interest. So it's going to cost you actually more money that you receive from the bank. And then again, what I'm saying there, you won't have money to pay for the bills. That is correct. He is spending too much at the end of the day. All right. Okay, let's see with number 8. That's how they redraw Donovan's budget. Draw up an expenses column for Donovan so that he can support himself with his current income. Okay. If you look at the information and just listen, if you've got a pen and a paper ready, you can quickly write also the figures down. Maybe that will help you to see it in front of you. But what I will say is to redraw the budget, I will do the following. Okay, the income stays the same. We cannot change anything to the salary of 4,210 Rand or the weekend job of 514 Rand. Although I will say maybe you must try to get a different weekend job where you can earn some more money there. But let's stick to what we currently have for the income. But we're definitely going to work on the expenses. So let's see on the expenses. Of 1,010 Rand, I will keep it like that. Okay. Then the electricity of 90 Rand, that cannot change, that stays the same. Then I've made a small change with the food. I've changed the food to 1,200 Rand. Okay, you can eat a little bit less. Then on the car payments and the petrol, I've only rounded it off to 1,000 Rand. Then with the account payments, I mean, he cannot get away with that. He needs to pay that 425 Rand. I've changed quite with the entertainment. It's no need to have a lot of money spent on entertainment. So I've changed the entertainment to 300 Rand. Clothing, I've changed the clothing to 200 Rand. No need to buy 600 Rand clothes every month. And what I've done is I've taken away the domestic help of 400 Rand because, as I said, he can clean after himself. He's only one person. He really doesn't need somebody to clean for him. So now, okay, let's make that calculation again. So I'm going to put now on my calculator the following. The income of 4,210 plus the 514 Rand for the weekend job. And then I'm going to subtract the expenses, but according to the changes that I've made. So mine is still 1,010 Rand for rent. Mine is still the 90 Rand for electricity. Then remember the food, I've changed to 1,200. So mine is 1,200. Sorry, I've put it wrong on the calculator. Let me just recalculate it quickly. Right, then the car payments and the petrol, I've rounded it up to 1,000 Rand, subtracting 1,000 Rand. I stick with the account payments of 425. Then I've changed the entertainment to 300 Rand, so minus 300 Rand. I've changed the clothing to 200 Rand, so minus 200 Rand. And then I take away the domestic help. So now, okay, you will see then, now your income is going to be more than your expenses. And then I've redrawn the budget. Donovan is going to have 499 Rand left. Okay, so now the budget is looking much better. So that 499 Rand, he can decide now what he is going to do with it. Either he can save it or he can go and invest it. But I will do in his case, I will rather save it. Why do I want to save it? Because let's say he needs it maybe for emergency, then that money will be immediately available to use. With number 9, they say explain how Donovan can manage financially with his new budget. Like I've said now, we have changed a little bit his budget. Some of the things was taken away, and then he will have some money left over that he can save. So if he needs it for emergency, then he can use it. So right, so far regarding budgets. Either they can give it like the previous slideshow. I just want to go back there, where they're going to give you information and you need to set up a budget like there at the bottom. Or what they can do is they can give you like this example where a budget has been drawn up already, and then they're going to ask you some questions based on that budget. Right, let's move on, still with budgets. And there is another activity that you guys are going to do now. It's about this time about Robert's monthly allowance. And there's a lot of information. I will read it through now with you guys. And then I'm going to ask you to roughly, on a piece of paper, set up a budget regarding Robert. So on the left-hand side, you put the income. On the right-hand side, you put the expenses. And you subtract it from each other to see if there is some money left over for Robert. So let's look at the information. Robert works as a waiter at a local restaurant and earns a basic hourly wage of 20 Rand. A normal Saturday night shift is 5 hours. Robert plans to work 3 Saturdays in March and thinks that he will receive 85 Rand per shift in tips. Robert uses his monthly allowance to pay for toiletries, petrol for his motorbike, monthly entertainment costs, tuck shop at the school, monthly repayment of a sound system, cell phone airtime, and savings for his planned soccer trip. And then there are some more information. Robert is planning to buy his mother a watch for her birthday, which costs 250 Rand. So basically the first paragraph there is your income. Okay. Then the big middle paragraph is your expenses. Then you subtract it from each other to see if there's some money left and if it is impossible for Robert to buy his mother the watch. Just to help you a little bit regarding the income, because there was quite a few information there. So remember, Robert is working 5 hours and he gets 20 Rand per hour. Okay, so 20 times 5, that is your one part of the income. But then he plans to work 3 Saturdays in a month. Okay, in March, and thinks that you will receive 85 Rand per shift in tips. So actually he's working 5 hours at a rate of 20 Rand, but only for 3 Saturdays. So it's going to be 5 times 20 times the 3 Saturdays. That is your income. But then you still need to add the tips, the 85 Rand per shift in tips. So again, so it's 85 times the 3 Saturdays, and then you need to add it with your income. Don't worry too much if you're going to struggle a little bit. I don't want to go on to this next slideshow because the answers is there, but I will show it later to you. So now I'm going to give you again 5 minutes. Try to see if you can figure it out for yourself. So quickly draw up a budget. As I said, on the left-hand side, the income. On the right-hand side, you list all the expenses and see what is the difference that you're going to get there. Again, if you have any questions, put it in the chat box. Okay, Junior, I see you guys said you can't hear. I've given you the activity to do. That's why you don't hear anyone maybe now. Okay, so you need to draw up roughly on a piece of paper the budget with the information that you see there in front of you. And I'm going to give you 5 minutes, but there is still about 3-4 minutes left that I'm going to give time to you, and then we're actually going to mark to see how you have done on this budget. I'm going to give you 1 more minute. All right, guys, you will see I'm going to start moving now to the next slideshow that is in the budget of Robert. So keep in mind all the details that you have here on this slideshow, what the income and the expenses is going to be. If you want to, you can mark your own budget to see how you did on this one. Right, so there you see, on the left-hand side, I've put the income there of Robert, and I've told you there of what the pocket money is and the weighted job regarding that, okay? And then on the right-hand side, they have mentioned all the expenses that they have listed there. So let's look at the expenses quickly first. I'm just going back to the previous slideshow so you can see where the details was coming from. So remember, if we go back, there in the middle, there was all the expenses, the toiletries of 150, the petrol of 263, the entertainment cost of 350, the tuck shop at the school, 90 Rand, then the repayment of the sound system is 175, cell phone airtime 80 Rand, and savings for the soccer trip is 120. So there you could have seen I've added them all up there on the right hand side on the expenses. If you add it up, then you will see you get a total there at the bottom of 1,228. Right, getting back to the left hand side with the income. Okay, so let's see where that information is coming from. Okay, right at the top, it was saying there, right at the top, it was saying there that he is receiving some pocket money. And then the next paragraph was saying there about his waitering job. Okay, so if again we look at the waitering job, then we said he's working for 5 hours at a rate of 20 Rand per hour. So 5 times 20, but he only works for 3 Saturdays. So 5 times 20 times 3. And then you still need to add the tips. And it's 85 Rand per shift. And he worked 3 Saturdays, 3 shifts. So 85 times 3, if you add that up, then you will get that waiter job of 555 Rand. Okay. Don't stress too much about these calculations regarding the income. This was a more difficult one. Normally, they will just indicate to you to say the income was 9,000 Rand, or the pocket money for this child is 1,000 Rand. Okay. So don't stress if you really don't understand how they calculated the income. As long as you know they will give the income to you, you put it on the left-hand side, you need to list the expenses on the right-hand side, and then you need to compare it with each other. So again, if we look at the total of the total of the income is 1,305 Rand, and the total of the expenses is 1,228. So what do you see here if you compare? That his income is a little bit more than his expenses. That is good, because it means he can pay for everything. But still, you can't really save because the difference is not too much. So what I will say is also that Robert needs to start to use less expenses. Depending on things like, even if you will remember, like the sound system, if I can just go back, you will remember there was a little note there to say it is 3 payments is remaining. So after 3 months, then that will automatically fall away, and then he can also save that 175 Rand. Right, the soccer trip, as soon as the soccer trip is finished, then you don't have to save the 120 Rand. So there's another savings thing. And then I will work a little bit on the airtime for the cell phone as well. And you maybe just take a 50 Rand away with the entertainment cost as well. So yes, he is having some money left over. So it is maybe possible that he can go and buy that watch for his mom. But like I said, at this stage, his situation is a little bit difficult. I would rather wait till that sound system has been paid off and that the soccer trip is finished. And then I will say he can go and buy presents for his mother. Right, so that was basically about budget. So I want to go and continue now with the next topic. So again, with the budgets, remember what I said, okay? Either they can give you some information and you need to draw up a budget, or they can give you a completed budget like they're in front of you guys, and then they can ask you some questions based on that budget. Right, we're moving now to transactions. They say there, first of all, the definition of what is a transaction. A transaction is a financial action or event that takes place in a business. A transaction has at least 2 interest parties, the buyer and the seller. Transactions must be recorded into source documents, for example, receipts, invoices, checks, etc. So, a transaction, and we have done financial concepts yesterday and Friday, and you will remember I've showed you those 2 people shaking hands. So a transaction is a financial action or an event happening between 2 people. These 2 people are either the buyer and the seller, and then the info that you get from a transaction must be written into a source document, and a source document is something like a receipt, an invoice, a check, etc. Then you get 2 types of transactions that can take place. Either it can be cash transactions or credit transactions. Cash transactions is when you basically just work with physical cash money. So either you're going to receive the money or you need to pay the money, but cash is involved. While credit transaction Then you work either with credit purchases or credit sales. Now, what do they mean with credit? That means that the person is not going to pay immediately. So, for instance, let's say we are a business and we are buying some stationery with another business, but on credit, then it means we're going to get the stationery immediately, but we're only going to pay it at a later stage. That is a credit transaction. Okay, so important on this page is to know what is the definition of a transaction, and secondly, that there are two types of transactions that can take place, and that is cash transactions and credit transactions. Then still with transactions, they say the transactions are recorded into journals and ledgers of a business. The following is necessary from the source document when recording a transaction in the books of a business. Before we look at that information, so right, in accounting, and remember this year you only do some basic concepts, and then from next year you're really going to start to understand how accounting is working. So accounting is starting with a transaction, okay? Then that transaction must be written into a source document. And then from the source document, they will record it into a journal or a book of accounting, okay? And that is what they say there at the top. Transactions are recorded in the journals or the ledgers of a business. So it's like a book of entry that you're going to have in a business. Then, okay, afterwards, they said the following is necessary from the source document when recording a transaction. So what information do you need to go and record that transaction in the journals? You need the date of the transaction, the parties who's involved in the transaction, the amount of money that is involved, and the reason for the transaction. Those four things very important. So the question can be, what type of information do you need from a source document to record it into the journals? And then you must say the date of the transaction, the parties involved, the amount involved, and the reason for the transaction. Okay, so just before I continue, because these two slides shows are about transactions, so I just quickly want to go back there. Remember, the definition of a transaction is a financial action or event that takes place in a business. And then remember, two parties are involved, the buyer and the seller. And remember, there are two types of transactions that can take place. Either it's cash transactions or credit transactions. And then remember the information that you need from the document to record it into a journal, and that is the date, the parties involved, the amount, and the reason for the transaction. Then the last part for today, you will see there, it's about the production factors. Now, we are still going to look at the whole topic about production factors, but remember, I said earlier that you're going to have informal assessment next week, and then this is definitely going to be one of the questions in that informal assessment, so I'm just going to touch it very quickly, and you will see there are three columns. On the left-hand side, there is your four factors of production. It is land, labor, entrepreneurship, and capital. Then the middle column is production, and the third column is outputs. Doesn't matter if it's goods or services. And then at the bottom, they say there, if you look at the picture, a stove, a person who can cook, a piece of chicken, and an entrepreneur cannot be called factors of production until they are combined together in a process producing a good or a service. So, first of all, my question will be, mention the four factors of production. Then you must say land, labor, entrepreneurship, and capital. All right, and now you can think for yourself to get an idea there. Let's say it is some, it looks like if it's that chicken licken, but let's say it's Nando's chicken, okay? You buy it at Nando's, but it starts from a process, okay? The chicken is not just falling out of the air there. So you need to get the chicken, okay? That is land that is basically involved there. The natural resources involved then. So that is a factor of production. Then you need to have the production process. So now you need somebody to cook that chicken, for instance. So there's labor going to be involved. You need a person that is maybe the entrepreneur that is going to do the production process for us. And even you have capital necessary to buy the chicken and to produce it into something. And then the third step is where you've got your final product, and that is going to be the very nice chicken looking that you're going to purchase with some chips. So that is going to be your outputs. Okay, as I said, this is a whole topic we're going to do at some time, but only for now, especially regarding the informal assessment that we're going to have. Just mention what is the 4 factors of production, and that is land, labor, entrepreneurship, and capital. Right, people? So that's it for today. If there's any questions, you're more than welcome to put it in the chat box now. Otherwise, we are going to be finished.